Let's talk about how dogs learn and why they learn the way that they do. So I really feel like this is super important when it comes to dog training. We really need to understand why a dog thinks the way they think. And honestly, the way that they think is not very much different than how we think. So dogs learn and they think two different ways. They learn by association and they learn by consequence. The cool thing is, like I said, all animals, including us, learn that same way too. We learn by association. If we go somewhere new, we meet someone new, we do something new, we're always going to walk away with a negative, a neutral, or a positive association. Always. A lot of the times we're doing it subconsciously. We don't realize that we're doing it, but we are doing it. A great example that I like to use is gas stations. If you drive, you probably have a gas station that you really prefer. Maybe it's the closest to your house. Maybe it's one that you really like because they have really good customer service, or they have that special candy bar that you really like. Or when it comes to grocery shopping or like a fast food restaurant, you avoid certain ones because you maybe had a bad experience there and you will go out of the way to go to a different one. That is how we do associations. Well, dogs are doing the same thing. They're constantly making associations with people, places, things, environments, all of the same things. The difference with dogs, though, is their senses are a lot heightened than ours is. So they hear better, they smell better, they see better. They're taking it all in. And because they're animals, they have a better sense of self-preservation than we do. So it's not just positive and negative, it's going to be safe and dangerous. And the hard thing is when we're working with something that's perceived safe or dangerous, that's a really tough emotion to try to change sometimes. And that's the association part of it. You guys can probably think of random objects that your dogs may have a positive association with. What happens when you pick up your leash? Does your dog get excited? What happens when you touch the food bowl or a treat bag? I know at my house, if I touch a bread bag, then my dogs get super excited because they get the heel of the bread. And so they're always like, ooh, is it my chance to get that? Are we done with the bread? Or did we just open a new one? So I didn't train them to do that. I mean, I kind of did, but not purposely. So these are associations, and your dogs are constantly making associations all the time. Sometimes we can make those associations for them and we can set them up, but a lot of times they're just happening all the time, just naturally. So that's the association part, and we can change it. We can manipulate it. And I know that sounds really dirty, but that's really all dog training is a little bit of manipulation. So what we can do is we can take something that's a neutral and make it a positive, or we can make it a negative, or we can take something that's a negative and make it a positive. So for an example, I can have in a room, I can have a dog, I can have a chair, and a divider so they can't see very well. I can put the divider in the middle of the room, have a chair on one side, and the dog on the other. I can remove the divider, the dog's going to see that chair, and at first it means nothing. It's nothing, not a big deal. But then I'm going to toss him a piece of chicken, and I put that divider back. And I do this over and over and over again, till all of a sudden that dog's like, holy crap, I like that chair. That's a really good chair. I get chicken when I see that chair, so I like the chair. It's a good thing. We just help them to have a positive association with the chair. On the flip side, we can make them have a negative. We can remove the divider, they see the chair, and maybe we yell at them. Or we make the chair make a really scary noise. Maybe there's just a random loud noise that happens whenever we move the divider and they see the chair. We could give them a leash correction. We could spank them on the butt, spray them with a water bottle, shake a can of coins at them. Do things like that, and when they see that chair, they're going to be like, yeah, I don't really like that chair. Bad things kind of seem to happen when that chair's around, so I'm not a big fan of that chair. And this can happen because we did that, or like I said, anything can happen. They see that chair and they have a negative experience with it. Well, the thing is, when a dog has a negative experience, they're going to do a couple different things. They're either going to be like, oh, I don't really like that. I'm going to blow it off and go somewhere else or do something different and just ignore it. They're going to get scared or they're going to get aggressive. And if you think about it, people kind of do the same thing. We may not get like super aggressive or super scared, but we do have those same type of associations as well. So the problem with this scenario, though, is it's just the dog, the divider, the chair, and me. Well, the dog may get the association with the chair, but they're also going to get that association with me if I'm tossing the chicken or if I'm doing the negative things. So I really want the dog to have a positive experience with me as well and not have a negative experience or an aversion to me, which means they might blow me off, get scared, or get aggressive. And so it's not, like I said, it's not that simple. And then even then, there's other elements involved with this. If there's a room and there's other dogs or other people, or if it's in the house, you don't have a whole lot of control over things, especially out in the outside world. I mean, your house you kind of do, but even then you can't control what's going on outside. So we have to be really careful because these associations can backfire on us if we try to do negative. So that's one of the reasons I consider myself a positive or force-free trainer. I try my hardest not to do anything that's going to be an aversion for a dog. And the thing is, what is an aversion for the dog or what is a negative is all on what the dog decides it is. Same thing with a positive. If I try to feed them kibble and they don't want kibble, that's not a positive. If I try to feed them chicken and they don't want chicken, that's not a positive to them. So we have to figure out what is motivating to the dog, and that's what we want to use. And we'll talk about that in a different video too. But that's the one part, is association. Second part is consequence. We learn by consequence. Don't put your hand on the stove because if you did it once, you got burnt, so don't do it again, right? Well, dogs are doing the same thing. They're learning by association and consequence. And if they do something, then they get a positive out of it, they're going to keep doing it because why not? It worked for them. That's what dogs would do. If it works for them and they get a positive, they're going to keep doing it. If it didn't work for them and they got a negative or something they didn't like, they probably aren't going to try it again. There are a few dogs, I call them persistent dogs. They're going to try it a few times just to see what they can get away with. Most people like to call them stubborn dogs. I lovingly call them persistent dogs. So that's the thing with consequence. The only difference, though, between a dog and a human when it comes to the consequence is the time spatial awareness. So what that means is that if you have a kid that makes an A on their test today and they get rewarded with ice cream tomorrow, they understand that time correlation and why they're getting rewarded. Dogs don't understand this. They do not understand that if they get rewarded the next day or even punished the next day, they have no idea why. The research shows that we have 20 seconds to reward or to punish them, or they have really no idea why. And this is so crucial into our timing and our communication with our dogs. This consequence, this timing is what really makes or break your dog training and how you're going to communicate to your dog. So here's a scenario. Let's say I'm working with a young dog and we're trying to work on sit. They kind of understand the word sit, they kind of understand the behavior, but they're not quite good at it just yet. So I'm working with them. I can use a hand signal or a lure with a treat or something like that, and I can ask them to sit, and they're going to put their butt on the ground. Well, they put their butt on the ground, and I'm like, yeah, all right, but I don't have any treats on me. So I go over to the cabinet, and I grab some treats, and what's going to happen is the dog sat, but they got up, then they turned around, then they spun, and then they jumped on me, and then I give them a treat. So technically, what did I reward them for? Well, in the dog's eyes, I mean, it could have been any of that. Theoretically, the very last thing they did is probably what the dog's going to think. So our timing was not very great with that. Our communication skills were not very great with that. So what we want to do is we want to clearly be able to tell the dog, when you sat, that's why you got the treat. That's why you are getting rewarded, right? So our communication skills, we need to have a treat ready or some way to tell the dog. And that's where marker words or clicker training comes into handy, which we'll talk about that in a different video. But it's very important that our consequence has to fit quickly with the dog just at first while they're learning. As they get better, you won't have to have that super specific timing down. I mean, it still helps. But anytime you move to a new distraction or learning something new, you still need to have really good timing. So you put these together and you have association and you have consequence. These are how the dog learns. They learn from their past and they're going to learn for their future. So as you're working with your dog, the more we can say, hey, do this and good things are going to happen. If you do this, maybe something bad's not going to happen, or we're not going to do anything mean to the dog or physically anything that hurts them. But you know what? You're also going to lose some privileges, right? So the dog learns, oh, well, that didn't work, so I'm going to try something different. Our goal in dog training is to teach our dogs do this instead and keep them from doing the unwanted behaviors at first. That is the biggest part of dog training, is just kind of managing and then showing what we want. And the association consequence works with that. So dogs they don't know what's right from wrong. They really don't. They don't understand right from wrong. They may look like it sometimes, but they don't. They only know what works for them. And if it works for them, they're going to keep doing it.